So to protect the people and property of Ferguson today, I signed an order declaring a state of emergency and ordering the implementation of a curfew in the impacted area of Ferguson. Again, this is not to silence the people of Ferguson or this region or others, but to contain those who are drowning out the voice of the people with their actions. We will not allow a handful of looters to endanger the rest of this community.
Politicians are always good for several things: saying they didn't do it, trumpeting their successes and forgetting their mistakes. And no matter where they reside, no matter who their constituents are, they watch the national news wires to find those events that will help further their careers, even if it has nothing to do with where they reside. What is happening in Ferguson, Missouri has turned the eyes of the world to Middle America and has politicians running as fast as they can to become part of the story. Welcome to MidPoint, Democratic strategist, regular contributor to Forbes.com, and liberal political commentator TJ Walker. Also in the electronic house, the senior writer for the website Human Events, John Hayward. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
I'm going to start off here by giving you a soundbite. I will not even have to tell you who this is, because when we speak about people who some people would indicate are taking advantage of a situation, I think this is a gentleman that most people lean to right away. Listen up.
Don't loot in Michael's name. We are not looters, we're liberators. We're not burners, we're builders.
All right, TJ, I'm going to leave it to you first of all. Liberators and builders. Is this not a prime example of somebody just taking advantage of a really tragic situation?
Well, Al Sharpton telling people not to loot, telling people to act respectfully and lawfully. I don't know why you're not endorsing that unless you just have a knee-jerk reaction to bash Al Sharpton. I noticed in your intro you sort of had to smear him. Here's the reality. To tens of millions of Americans all across the country and in the African-American community, Al Sharpton is widely respected. It is Rush Limbaugh and conservatives that are seen as the money changers, those who capitalize on human misery.
John, I'm going to leave it to you next. Your reaction.
People who think that are wrong, and you're not doing them any favors by indulging them. I don't have any problem with Al Sharpton saying don't loot. That's great. But then he goes on with this liberator stuff like there's some kind of a revolutionary army. Who's that doing any good for? That's the language of breaking faith with a civilization, with a society, and nothing in Ferguson is going to improve any until some sense of mutual goodwill is restored. That's a cooperative effort by everyone.
Do we really need people coming in from out of the area, such as the Sharptons, the Jacksons, and others, to come into an area here? Because they always come in, and I'll be fair, they always come in saying that they wish to remain calm and they wish to bring calm to an area, but do they always do that? John?
Well, you can say you wish to remain calm and still not be calm. You can say things that are still incendiary. And the more this becomes an ideological battle and about deeper and bigger issues, the further away it moves from what actually happened and the individuals that were actually involved.
And you're awfully selective. I don't hear you so upset about Richard Nixon going on the law and order theme in his campaign in '68, essentially.
TJ, let's be honest here. We're talking 1968 to 2014. Please, 1968 to 2014. Let's stay on where we are right now.
What's that?
TJ, let's not go 1968 to 2014. Let's stay on now. Isn't that fair?
Okay, let's talk about Benghazi. Here's a tragic situation where a couple of Americans were killed, and every single political demagogue on the right tries to make hay, tries to cash in, tries to do phony books and videos on it, cashing in on human misery. It's utterly sickening, and yet you don't list them. You only want to pick on the Al Sharptons and the Jesse Jacksons. It seems highly
selective. Well, because we're not talking about Benghazi at the moment. We are talking about Ferguson, Missouri.
You're talking about specifically politicians and political factors trying to cash in on tragedy, and I'm giving you a very recent tragedy of Benghazi.
All right, John?
Where were the Benghazi riots? Can you tell me that?
I certainly see a lot of people capitalizing on it, making money. And if you're against riots, you should be endorsing what Al Sharpton said. He said, don't riot, don't loot.
I did endorse that part of it. I don't like the rest of it, and I can't believe you're off to Benghazi over this. Good Lord, that's why this is such a mess. Nobody's talking about what actually happened or the responsibility of people to do what they're doing. We're talking about Benghazi now? We're talking about
a lot of people are talking about what's happening. What's happening is we have a situation in this particular city and in other places in America where just because you're a black man, there's a good chance of you being shot and killed. That doesn't happen to me. It doesn't happen to Ed. We don't have to feel that threat when we walk down streets. But there are many communities in this country where black people feel as though they are victimized by the police. And you want to know who's benefiting this part? It's not a left-right situation always. Rand Paul has gotten a lot of credit from people around the country saying he's bothered by this militarization of police forces. You see these tiny towns with big tanks and every kind of camouflage and SWAT materials, and it's starting to scare people, this idea of the militarization of our police force.
John, you want to answer to people being scared because of what they call militarization of police?
That's a good topic, but that doesn't directly pertain to what happened between Michael Brown and the police officer. That's all something that happened several days later when the riots got out of control. And after that show of force, it seemed like things got better. Now everybody's arguing over why they started rioting again and why it got worse. And I'm as alarmed about the militarization of the police as anybody, but that isn't what actually started all this. That's not the original issue that we're talking about.
What started was a black guy who had no gun, who had his hands up in the air, is shot 6 times and killed.
Okay, allegedly had his hands up in the air, TJ.
A lot of people are bothered by that.
TJ allegedly had his hands up in the air because, let me just interrupt for a moment. There are different witness reports that are now coming out with regard to the hands in the air. That is 1 or 2 witness accounts. Let's be fair. John, go ahead.
We should wait until the facts are in on what actually happened. The police were launching an investigation. This isn't like months went by and there was a whitewash in progress. Within 24 to 48 hours of this happening, we had agitators and we had things going south down there. And all the original mythology lies in tatters. He wasn't a harmless little teenager. He just robbed a liquor store. You know, this whole idea that he was randomly gunned down by a racist cop, if you're spreading that idea, you're part of the problem. That's toxic. And
well,
people
you're part of the whitewash right
never
now because the facts
society.
have come out that the police officer who shot him knew nothing about this alleged robbery. He knew nothing.
Yeah, but he did.
Whitewashing after the fact. And the other thing that strikes people as whitewashing is not revealing the name of the officer. It strikes of a cover-up, and it just doesn't pass the smell test. In the same way that this community, 65, 70% African-American, and only 3 black officers, the whole thing is rubbing people the wrong way. There's something fundamentally corrupt here. It's more like 1980s South Africa apartheid system than what should be happening in America in 2014.
So then, TJ, you don't agree with those who said they were trying
to throw gasoline on the fire like that. Good Lord, South Africa apartheid. I mean, this is absurd. This whole incident was
you have
the course
a white
of a horrible
minority
Sunday afternoon,
completely
and now
controlling
South Africa and apartheid.
Complete political
it's relevant that the guy committed a robbery.
Police apparatus of a community.
Okay, I'm going to call time. I'm going to call time for a second here. John, please finish your thought. TJ, I'll let you get in. Go ahead, John.
It's relevant what the person that was shot was doing. And the original story we were told about what he was doing was entirely false. This might still be regrettable. The cop could still be wrong. He may still be brought up on charges. There's a lot yet to know. But the people jumping to conclusions created a narrative that's not true. And now that narrative's been patched into everything from Benghazi to apartheid in South Africa. No wonder it's a mess down there.
All right.
You're seemingly buying into this myth that somehow, because he was a bad kid, he deserves to be shot. Or maybe he did hold up a liquor store. The policeman didn't know it who shot him. The policeman had no indication that he was a part of any crime, and you are retroactively trying to give this guy an excuse. That's whitewashing, and that's what makes a lot of Americans sickened by this whole prospect. It's an ugly spectacle. This idea now of, he smoked pot maybe once in the last 30 days, so now that's a good reason for him being shot.
TJ, I don't think at any time he said that he deserved to be shot.
They don't get shot.
I don't think at any time John said he deserved to be shot.
So what have you got left? You can't even respond to what somebody said to you 2 minutes ago. What's left?
Nice cheap smear. What's left for you? Why can't you address the fact that here is someone who was walking down the street, who was not a part of any crime, and was shot 6 times, and a lot of people feel it's unjust, and it was because of his race.
I'm sorry, did you just say he was not a part of
conservative
any
America
crime?
says the only racism that exists is against Herman Cain, but there is real racism in America, and it's racism
What does
of the
Herman
white
Cain
power
have to do with
establishment
all this?
against poor blacks.
John, I think
I'm
you would
sorry.
agree, though, that there is something here. We only got about 30 seconds left. John, I think we both can agree there is something here. There needs to be a full investigation. We need to get the answers before we jump, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. And in microcosm, this discussion is exactly the problem. He's off there on Herman Cain and Benghazi claiming that I said the kid deserved to die. I didn't say that. I mean, we're talking about people that are looking at each other and not even speaking the same language anymore, and that's where social unrest comes from.
Last shot, TJ. I'll give you 10 seconds.
I agree it's a problem, as our guest demonstrates. Too many Americans are not willing to even admit there's a problem of racism in America, and that's why so many people are upset.
I think it's foolish if we don't admit that. I think we can all agree on that. TJ Walker, John Hayward, thank you so much for a very spirited conversation. We'll do it again soon, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, it is something that everybody is going to need to think about because, quite frankly, in this day and age, and what's happening in Ferguson, Missouri right now is making a lot of people think about what exactly is the issue and what exactly we need to be talking about. Rick Perry's talking a lot these days. So are the people in Texas about what they deem is nothing more than a frivolous lawsuit. But then again, is it really? That and a whole lot more coming up as MidPoint continues right here on the Newsmax TV network.